Now, KPLC CEO Engineer Joseph Siror says that the high cost of power is partially attributable to the huge investments made by the government in the power sector. Our reporter Jasmine Murani caught up with KPLC's new boss on this and other issues. Listen in.
The man at the top of one of Kenya's oldest organizations is a mystery to many. This not to mean that he's new to public service. His experience spans decades. So when we asked about his journey to the top of KPLC, he had this to say.
I did electrical engineering from University of Nairobi and graduated in the year 1990. So in 1991 is where I worked briefly at civil aviation. It was Directorate of Civil Aviation. After 4 months, I joined Kenya Post and Telecoms as a people engineer, thereafter as an executive engineer. While I was still working as an electrical engineer, I was also assisting them in automation. And then in 1996, I joined Firestone East Africa. It was then an American company that was involved in manufacturing of tires. Working with them, I now transitioned fully into IT. So I was no longer dealing with matters electrical. I was actually dealing with IT development and all that. I worked with Firestone for 2.5 years. So I left them in September 1998 when I joined Kenya Revenue Authority as a senior assistant commissioner or as a manager in charge of headquarters systems. In 1998, the level of automation in KRA was quite low. So upon joining them, some of the key initiatives I did was to now introduce modern technologies. The first one was a local area network, which at the time, the headquarters were based in NSF building. So I set up a network in our 16th floor, which was then the building, or rather the floor that MIS was in, put the first local area network, registered the domain kra.go.ke. Whenever you type kra.go.ke, know that the one who actually registered it is the person standing in front of you. Around 2004, I also introduced the cargo scanners, the one for scanning cargo. After that, one of the other key projects I was involved in one is called electronic cargo tracking. We were able to provide complete traceability. You're able to see in a screen complete movement until it reaches the destination. From there, I joined National Economic and Social Council as a director in charge of science, technology, and innovation. This is the body that gave birth to Vision 2030, and it gave birth to a number of things that the government is currently implementing. I was there for 5 years, and then I joined Kenya Electricity Transmission Company as a general manager in charge of technical services, where there are a number of projects which I spearheaded and a number of initiatives. I was there for a period of until May this year, when I joined Kenya Power as the managing director and CEO.
And given that the cost of power has shot up in recent months, we sought his perspective on it.
Over the past few years, the government has ambitiously invested in the electricity sector. And these investments were very important, because if you look at the electricity penetration a few years ago and where we are right now, it is so different. We've really gone, so there has been a lot of investment in that space. And when there is a lot of investment, even look at the structure of the IPPs and the PPS and the others, there is the issue that the initial investment has to be recovered. And it is through that recovery, and during this period, that some of them are still recovering, because the investment has actually been recent. But as we go forward, most of these will have been recovered and the cost will also come down. And also some of the projects are still have not been completed, which would really have contributed to lowering the cost of power.
But Dr. Siror admits that there's more to the high cost of power, including the role of Kenya Power and other operators in the sector.
In system losses, you look at commercial and technical. Technical is so much to do with the infrastructure, which you cannot change overnight. But commercial now is the space where you have people using illegal connections and a few things here and there. And that is the space actually we are really dealing to reduce it to the lowest.
But just how are power producers selected to provide power into the grid through the National Control Center, given that some power sources are more expensive than others?
You look at the cheapest sources, you deploy them. So you use what is called the merit order. Which one comes first? There is the ones which is on a take or pay regime. What we mean by take or pay, if you take, you pay. You don't take, you pay. So those are the ones which will always come, and that will include all the hydros, a number of the IPPs which are on that arrangement. And then once you've met what you require, then you can now see which other ones to engage. But At times again, and that's what I was mentioning about the issue of intermittent, when you have power, say you need in Mombasa, no, the generation in Lodwar might not address the challenge that you have in Mombasa. And like I talked about, when the voltage again rises so high, even though you had a plan of how you are going to deploy the resources, you are at times forced to engage now this thermal to stabilize that particular aspect. So there is the merit order, and there is also the system security. System security is that aspect now that you need to secure.
Is expensive power really better than no power at all?
Some countries who have not handled it quite well, like South Africa, you have the kind of load shedding that is there, or rationing that is there, then you would appreciate that where we are as a country is much better vantage point when you compare us with South Africa in terms of electricity and service provision.
And as a major stakeholder in the power sector, how can this cost of power be brought down?
The three key areas I'm really looking at is increasing the demand. And the reason why I talk about that is the sense that I did mention in the previous interview that when you look at the power demand curve, in a 24-hour period, there are periods where our power consumption is quite low. And there are periods, of course, where we have the peaks. Now, ours is to engage the large power consumers, all the SMEs, and all that space to see whether we can work together towards them getting more power. Another area we are looking at is operational efficiency. We are looking at ways to really increase our operations. And the aspect of the smart grid, all that, plays a very key role. And that is actually why we are emphasizing so much, even on this research, and looking at solutions and initiatives which can really assist us to address that. And then the other aspect, of course, would also be reducing the losses. And that reducing the losses, we know there are a number of initiatives which we are actually pushing, both even from our sister agencies and ourselves, which are all geared towards improving these losses.
KPLC is also looking to diversify income streams by use of smart pools. Smart pools are where internet service providers will lease KPLC power pools to transmit internet to every corner of the country.
KPLC wants to ride on that, to support, because we have a very big fiber network traversing the country, and possibly working together with our sister agency, Ketraco. All our transmission lines, we have fiber. And so already, we are almost covering the whole country. So only what needs to happen is what is called the last mile. So that we are in conversation with the government, so that they invest more, or the investment more comes from the last mile aspect. Installing it from our last substation, following the feeders, and going to all the places where they need to reach. Because definitely, if it is that school they want to reach, power is in that school.
Ambitious plans for Kenya's most talked about parastatal. Kenyans can only wait